The Minecraft mob vote was rigged every single time. The Sniffer was not the first or even the second time they rigged the vote. It was actually rigged every time, with one exception, but I'll explain that at the end. Hello, my name is Sierra Mysteria. Today, I'll reveal the dark truth behind the mob votes, and we'll talk about what's actually been going on. Let me explain. Around a year ago, a YouTube channel called Game Theory released a viral short pointing out that the Sniffer vote was rigged. This shows that not only content creators can manipulate the vote, but Mojang themselves could and did manipulate the mob vote. But that begs the question, if they did it then, is it possible that they've done it more than once? Let's break it down. In essence, the problem with the Sniffer vote was that we were given a false choice. That year, we picked between the tough golem, it would hold items and freeze randomly, so it's basically a glorified hatch rack. The rascal, if you chased it down 3 times in the mines, it would give you an enchanted iron pit, so a ton of work for very little reward. And then there was a Sniffer, an extinct species that digs up ancient seeds and comes with 2 new plants. Obviously the Sniffer won by a landslide. Interestingly enough, if you think about it, the infamous 2020 vote also fit that exact format. There was 2 boring mobs that were put up against a detailed and exciting one that would add a ton to the game. If you remember, the description of the moo bloom was that it's a cow, but yellow. The glow squid was described as a squid. The Isolager, on the other hand, had the most exciting trailer by far. They showed it attacking the players by summoning giant blocks of ice above their heads. The Isolager was a perfect poster child for the mountain update. When Mojang is updating the terrain and making the mountains higher than ever before, what could be cooler than adding a threatening ice wizard to live on the highest peaks? The Isolager was perfect for the mountain update. Too perfect. Just as the Sniffer is too perfect for the archaeology update. So the Sniffer vote was actually the second time Mojang had put 2 boring choices up against a detailed, fully fleshed out option that just so happened to perfectly complement the theme of their next patch. So in 2020, we weren't just screwed over by Dream, the vote had already been rigged by Mojang. And this was all fully intentional on their part, the rigging, not the trolling. Mojang understands perfectly well that presentation makes all the difference. It's clear that they have a goal in mind for the game, and they are willing to arrange the presentation and the contents of the vote so that their goal becomes a reality. They tried to rig the vote in 2020, the Dream drama just covered it up. And they rigged it again in 2022, and it was uncovered by Game Theory. But what about 2021? Was that legit? Let's consider the options. In 2021, we had the Copper Golem, that was essentially a redstone randomizer, niche use, and something that we already have in the game. And then we had the Glare, a flying bush which flies to spawnable blocks. Not very helpful. And then there was the Allay, an adorable flying fairy that retrieves items and expands upon in-game lore. A revolution for non-stackable item sorting, and it's also useful anytime you're gathering resources. This mob could be useful to literally anybody, and it's so cute that it's even appealing as a pet. 2 lame, boring choices up against a detailed, fully fleshed out option with a lot going for it. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Mojang is manipulating us by offering 2 bad choices and 1 good, but they're still letting us feel like we're making a choice. Unfortunately, that's how they're treating the entire player base each time they rig the vote. As Game Theory said, we're being given false choices. We think it's a fair system, but that's just an illusion. But you might be wondering, even if all that's true, what's the harm? Why shouldn't Mojang do whatever they want? I would argue that this rigging truly hurts the player base because there's a real loss of whatever those other 2 mobs could have been. If Mojang had put their minds to it and actually designed 3 good choices instead of giving us 1 good choice placed next to 2 placeholder duds, who knows what the game would look like today. And there's no happy ending if we happen to choose the wrong mob. Look at how the glow squid turned out. They didn't make it any more interesting after it won than before it won. So if the suboptimal choice wins, the game itself is updated with objectively bad content. Content that Mojang never ever intended to actually put into the game. They just designed it to be good enough to seem plausible while being bad enough that we wouldn't pick it. When contrasted with the really good quality mobs, it becomes a no-brainer. Alongside that, Mojang rigging the vote also leaves the community open to trolling. If Mojang had honestly designed 3 solid choices to begin with, then Dream couldn't have trolled everyone. It would have literally been impossible if we had 3 good mobs. So, in the end, it's actually Mojang's fault that we ended up with the glow squid. If they didn't try to come up with awful mobs so they could rig the vote, we wouldn't have had millions of disappointed players missing out on a good addition to the game. Thankfully, today, things are a little bit different. After the viral short revealing the Sniffer vote manipulation, it's possible that Mojang realized they had been caught. That leads us on to this year's vote, which I would say is the first well-balanced mob vote since the beginning. This year, we chose between the penguin, which increases boat speed, the crab, which drops a tool that increases your reach when placing blocks, and the armadillo, which drops an item to make wolf armor. All three choices this year were very useful in their own way, and they have good utility for builders and for explorers, and a long-requested feature in the wolf armor. This is what the mob vote pretended to be all along, a fair contest between three quality choices. Feels a bit different from the others, doesn't it? Ironically, the fact that they're all useful and popular mobs, especially this year, is a key complaint in the viral petition, because asking the players to choose between three great choices doesn't fix all the problems with a mob vote. It simply highlights new problems. But that's a topic for another video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!